Good afternoon. I'm Savannah Kelly. Welcome to APTN National News. The National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations and the Minister of Indigenous Services were among those appearing before politicians looking at First Nations drinking water. The First Nations Clean Water Act has been before the Standing Committee on Indigenous and Northern Affairs. The ongoing hearings come at a time when the Shamattawa First Nation and federal government are sitting in court over a failure to provide clean drinking water to the nation in northern Manitoba. 145 long-term drinking water advisories have been lifted since the Liberals formed government in 2015. However, 33 still remain.
Listen, right now, Canada can arbitrarily decide how much they want to fund a particular water system. Canada can arbitrarily decide that they're going to cut the funding for water operators across this country. Canada can arbitrarily decide, what regulations might be in place. And what First Nations are saying through this legislation is, first of all, respect our self-determination. Second of all, be a true partner. And that's what this legislation actually achieves. Of course, there are opportunities for amendments to make it stronger. You will deliberate on those amendments. I will look forward to your feedback. As I've said publicly, we are open to amendments that strengthen the aim of this bill. But this bill has really two goals. One is to ensure that First Nations never, ever are in the position that they were before 2015, where they were at the whim of a federal government that did not prioritize their rights to clean drinking water. And two, set a framework where First Nations have the tools they need for full self-determination over protecting their water sources and their water systems.
And we'll bring you more on today's testimony on the First Nations Clean Drinking Water Act tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Leaders from the Prince Albert Grand Council in northern Saskatchewan were in Ottawa on Wednesday. The Grand Council represents 12 First Nations. They were there to press the federal government for more funding to address healthcare, housing, and public safety deficits. At the press conference on Parliament Hill, chiefs urged politicians to put partisanship aside and meet treaty commitments, stressing mental health issues and public safety are at a crisis point due to gang activity. Shoal Lake Cree Nation Chief Marcel Head also said communities are in urgent need of better housing.
Our houses are deplorable. They have to be up to standard. And the funding that we do receive is very minimal, and we have a growing and aging population. We need the government to respect and recognize this as a crisis.
As Hurricane Milton tears through Florida, the Seminole tribe is coordinating an emergency response with the help of the U.S. government. The now Category 3 storm has put 15 counties in the state, totaling over 7.2 million residents under evacuation. The National Weather Service has also issued more than 90 tornado warnings in Florida. On Tuesday, U.S. President Joe Biden approved the tribe's request for an emergency declaration, granting federal assistance to supplement their response efforts. Now the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, will arrange disaster relief and deliver on-the-ground support. FEMA will provide emergency protective measures at 75% federal funding. The Seminole Tribe of Florida represents 6 reservations in the state and 4,000 enrolled members. During a briefing earlier today, President Biden spoke about the federal response to Hurricane Milton, which he described as the storm of the century.
I know it's really tough, leaving behind your home, your belongings, everything you own. But I urge everyone in Hurricane Milton's path to follow all safety instructions as we head to the next 24 hours. It's literally a matter of life and death. Second, for the last week, my team has done everything possible to prepare for this storm. I immediately approved emergency declarations in Florida and the Seminole Tribe in Florida. I also surged search and rescue teams, water, food, power generators, ambulances to the region.
The Saddle Lake Cree Nation number 125 in Alberta has implemented a Band Council resolution that says the Assembly of First Nations no longer represents them. The resolution was passed July 4th. It says that the AFN has been signing agreements with the Crown, including permanent bilateral mechanisms and memoranda of understandings, without the free, prior, and informed consent of the Satellite Cree Nation. It also notes that the AFN has no regional Alberta chief. It says the AFN continues to ignore and undermine the full understanding and implementation of their treaty rights. We reached out to Chief Jason Whiskeyjack for comment. We have not yet heard back. A First Nation in northern Yukon has fully rejoined the Council of Yukon First Nations after it left the organization 16 years ago. The Vuntut Gwitchin First Nation officially rejoined the council, which works for the territory's First Nations, on Wednesday. The First Nation cut ties with the council in 2008 due to political disagreements it had with the organization. It rejoined the council in 2019 as an associate member. During the First Nations General Assembly held earlier this summer, it voted unanimously to rejoin the council as a full member in order to protect its rights and strengthen its voice at the leadership table. The First Nation now has voting rights when it comes to leadership decisions.
It was presented as from one of the citizens, and it was debated and discussed, and there was I would say there was no negativity, there was no further tensions. It was all about the positivity of what it would mean to rejoin CYFN.
The Northwest Territories Chief Public Health Office is advising some dental patients in the Beaufort Delta to get tested for hepatitis and HIV. The office says some patients may have had procedures where equipment was not properly cleaned, disinfected, and sterilized as per standard procedure. The procedures took place in Aklavik, Fort McPherson, Paulatuck, Sax Harbor, and Ulu-Ugtuk between March 21st and April 29th. The office says while the risk of exposure to infections is low, it recommends anyone who received treatment during this period to get tested out of a precaution. No further details are being provided as there is an active investigation underway. Anyone wanting a test can contact their local health center. The case against Dances with Wolves actor Nathan Chasing Horse has had a lot of movement in recent days. Last week, charges against the actor were dismissed, but he is currently still in custody in Nevada. But late Tuesday afternoon, there was announcement of new charges against Chasing Horse. The Clark County prosecutor filed single counts of possession and producing child sex abuse materials against the 48-year-old. Currently in the Tsuut'ina First Nation in Alberta, Chasing Horse is accused of 4 counts of sexual assault, along with other charges in Alberta and BC. Dennis Ward spoke with Sergeant Mike Cavilla of the Tsuut'ina Police Service earlier.
Sergeant Cavilla, appreciate you taking some time for us here. Can you give us your take on what's happening with the case in Las Vegas and how the new developments affect your case in Tsuut'ina?
Yeah, for sure. We have been monitoring closely what's been going on in the U.S. courts down in Nevada with the Superior Court and the recent ruling that dismissed the charges out of Las Vegas, the 18 felony charges. And so we're in constant contact right now with our American law enforcement partners and the District Attorney's Office in Clark County in order to determine next steps.
Now, as you mentioned, the charges have been dismissed. You've been in touch with the FBI in Las Vegas. How does all this affect your case?
Well, we have currently 10 outstanding arrest warrants here in Canada, and obviously we can't extradite anybody until the American charges are looked after and sentencing or a guilty or not guilty plea is found before we can move on any extradition process. And so we're going to continue to monitor the situation as it stands down in Nevada and basically be in close contact with the DA's office to determine whether or not the charges that now have been, it's my understanding they've been they've been renewed on October the 7th, which would have been Monday, I guess. And so He is facing those new charges. Our concern is that he remains in custody, and that's one of the questions that's up in the air right now.
Right. Any other concerns about these latest developments?
No, I think just the flight issue is our main concern up here, because if he were released from custody, I think that he is a flight risk in that. But it sounds to me, talking to the DA's office, that there would be strict conditions should he be released from custody on a $200,000 bail is the number that I think has been set.
Now, I believe that Chasing Horse is also facing potential charges in other U.S. states, here in Canada. Do you know how that all plays out, and would you expect that Chasing Horse would be extradited to Canada anytime soon?
I spoke to Fort Peck, Montana, actually this morning and spoke to their investigators regarding their outstanding warrant. And so there, as you refer to, there are outstanding warrants in other states in the U.S. And so I'm in constant contact with those investigators as well. We just really don't know at this particular point in time how this is going to play out. So we are looking at what the extradition process is for an American citizen, because Chasing Horse is American. He was born in South Dakota. So basically we're having that process hopefully in place, and should it come to that, then hopefully we'll be ready to move on it.
Well, Sergeant Cavilla, really appreciate you shedding some light on this from the angle up here as well. Appreciate your time.
Okay, thanks for having me.
For the latest news on this story and others, head to aptnnews.ca. Also, if this story has been triggering and if you need support today, you can call the Hope for Wellness helpline 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for counseling and crisis intervention at 1-855-242-3310, or connect to the online chat at www.hopeforwellness.ca and follow the links. We now want to tell you about this week's web poll question. How much trust do you have in the federal government's handling of environmental issues affecting Indigenous communities? You can vote for high, moderate, low, or no trust by visiting our website at aptnnews.ca. We need to step aside for a short break. Coming up next, we'll have some stories from our friends at NITV in Australia. We'll be back in about 3 minutes. Stay with us. Welcome back to APTN National News. Residents of the far north Queensland community of Wudjil are continuing to pick up the pieces after the town was devastated by floods and lashed by a cyclone last December. The repairs and rebuilding have been slow, and residents say they'll be extra vigilant this year. But amid the caution, there's also optimism for the future. Here's a story from our friends at NITV in Australia.
With the wet season approaching, no one in the Aboriginal community of Wudjil knows the dangers and destruction of floodwaters more than Mayor Alastair Gibson. In December last year, and with little warning, his town went under.
Yeah, we got that heavy rain, come over us, and it didn't go nowhere, so it just poured down heavy.
In the wake of Cyclone Jasper, torrential rainfall coupled with a king tide caused widespread flooding, with the tiny town of 270 evacuated.
First time ever in my lifetime to see anything like this.
Wudjil Aboriginal Shire Council taking extra precautions to be ready for the wet season in 2024.
We picked 5 zoning areas where our bomber can move up higher.
8 months on, the recovery and rebuild continue in Wudjil. The community pulling together to restore the tiny Cape town.
2 weeks, I think, went by, no help from anyone. I think Kylie, the CEO, kept fighting to get people in here, and finally help come. QBill come in.
The mayor spruiking tourism as another way to bounce back.
Yeah, we got a beautiful country, land. Want to see more visitors come in. Yeah, just stop in, say hello.
Dan Rennie, NITV News.
Queensland has begun holding educational forums ahead of the launch next week of its truth-telling and healing inquiry. In the Torres Straits in the far north of the state, elders and community members are glad the process will finally begin. Here's another story from NITV.
On Wyburn, Thursday Island, a celebration. And a coming together to share and listen. Members of Queensland's Truth-Telling and Healing Inquiry are here to raise awareness about their 3-year investigation and the role the community will play.
For us, the role is really looking at the impact of colonisation on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, hearing the stories, the evidence of Torres Strait Islander people, of events that occurred across this region.
Betty Tekahika Ni Mabo is the eldest daughter of the late Eddie Koiki Mabo. He led the High Court Mabo decision that abolished the notion of terra nullius and led to native title. She wants her father's behind-the-scenes struggles to be known.
He was fighting for the two big giants of this country, the Commonwealth and the state. He put them down. He was just a one army. And he won the case.
The inquiry will also have access to never-before-seen documents with some restrictions.
There are records that are closed that we won't have access to. There are personal records that we obviously will need consent of people to access, so there's real limit.
But the inquiry has learnt lessons from other states, such as Victoria's Yurok Justice Commission.
They're actually at the end of their 3-year appointment. We are learning a lot from what they have done in Queensland. This is our turn now. So our government is giving us the opportunity to look into Queensland history.
Queensland's first ceremonial hearing is to be held in Meanjin, Brisbane, later this month.
You be prepared for them to heal yourself, your story about your family.
Carly Willis, NITV News.
Traditional owners in Western Australia's Gascoyne region are set to play a much bigger role in the conservation and protection of a pristine coastal attraction. As NITV reports, the Mulgana people have signed an agreement with the West Australian government for the joint management of a conservation estate at Shark Bay.
Shark Bay, or Carthagara in the local Mulgana language, is known for its natural beauty and wildlife. Dugongs, turtles and whales abound in the waters of WA's Gascoyne region. The area's spectacular camping and recreation sites bring visitors from around the world. Traditional owners know that can be a double-edged sword.
Very proud to be one of the traditional owners of this country, and this country is very fragile, so we've got to get the right balance to make sure that people that do come here to visit what we've got, they look after it.
Under a new agreement, traditional owners and the WA government will jointly manage the new Mulgana Conservation Estate, covering more than 1,800 square kilometres. Joint management will also extend over existing national parks, including Dirk Hartog Island and conservation parks at Monkey Mire and Shell Beach. That'll create more opportunities for young mob from the region to build a career as a ranger.
I feel it's up to us young fellas to step up and do what our elders did when they were younger. And if we can get more young Mulgana people out in country, it will do so much better.
Local elders keen to develop future opportunities for generations to come.
Yeah, quite excited about that because there's a lot of them want to be rangers now, and I definitely think we will benefit in the long run.
A greater say in caring for country. Michael Park, NITV News.
We need to take one more quick break. Coming up, we'll bring you previews of our upcoming episodes of Nation to Nation and APTN Investigates. Over on the East Coast, 12 degrees and sunny for Halifax, plus 10 in Fredericton. Rainy and 5 in Nain, Kuujjuaq, 3 degrees. Quebec City, mix of sun and cloud, 10 degrees there. Gaspé, plus 10. Sarnia, sunshine, 13 degrees. North Bay, plus 7. Timmins, 24. Kapuskasing, sunny and 9 degrees. God's Lake, sunshine and 10 degrees. Churchill, plus 6. Winnipeg, sunshine, 13 there. Barons River, plus 10. Estevan, 15 degrees there. Saskatoon, 8 degrees. Stony Rapids, mix of sun and cloud, 5 degrees. Uranium City, sunshine and plus 4. 10 degrees for high level in Grand Prairie. Calgary, 13 degrees and sunshine. Red Deer, plus 12. Penticton, sunshine, 15 there. Canal, plus 10. Fort Nelson, mostly cloudy, 9 degrees. Smithers, plus 10. Watson Lake, 5 degrees there. Mayo, snowy and 8. Yellowknife, rainy, 7 degrees. Wrigley, plus 6. Paulatuck, mix of sun and cloud, 2 degrees there. Fort McPherson, plus 2 as well. Baker Lake, snowy and 4 degrees. Chesterfield, plus 3. Arctic Bay, snowy and plus 3 there. Resolute, 0 degrees. Now it's time to check in with Fraser Needham to see who will be on Nation to Nation later today.
Here's who I'm speaking to on tonight's edition of Nation to Nation. Senator Brian Francis recently raised the issue of government funding cuts to Residential Schools Documents Advisory Committee in the Senate. This will affect how residential school survivors access documents to their time at one of these schools. As well, I will be speaking with Madeline Redfern. She is part of a new survivors circle for reproductive justice. In particular, she'll speak about forced sterilization of Indigenous women. And John Howard Society lawyer Pierre Hawkins drops by the studio. He will talk about injustice in Saskatchewan's correctional system. That's all coming up right after the national news later today.
APTN Investigates returns this week with an all-new episode. Investigative journalist Brittany Guillot looks into the mystery surrounding the death of Charles Udy. Udy's body was found wedged in a Vancouver storm drain in 2015. Authorities declared his death an accident, but his family has never stopped searching for answers. Here's a preview.
It's been more than 9 years since Charles Udy passed away, and it's the first time Eugenia has been back to the site where her son's remains were found. A gentle gust of wind rolls through the neighborhood, and Eugenia feels his presence.
I feel kind of like I keep thinking about that day, that evening when they first brought me here to the site, and it's just a lot of memories are flooding back.
The police say no one was ever considered a suspect in his death. The Udy family doesn't believe the police theory.
Like, didn't you see his body and his marks on his body? Like, it looked like my brother got beat up. It doesn't look like he fell in a drain and just like died.
The questions surrounding his death still play over in Eugenia's mind. If Charles didn't drown, then what really happened to him?
You can watch the all-new episode of APTN Investigates this Saturday here on APTN and the APTN News YouTube channel. And that's all the time we have for your afternoon news this Thursday. Dennis Ward will be back here in a few hours with your evening newscast. Make sure to join us then. I'm Savannah Kelly. Marcy Miigwech, thank you for joining us. I'll be back here tomorrow with the first look at your Friday news. See you then.